When my older sister Madison Yee suddenly changed her mind and said she no longer needed me to marry Jack Johnson, in her place a man who was paralyzed, I immediately understood she, like me, had been reborn. In our previous life, Madison's fiancé, Jack, was left half paralyzed after an accident during a mission. When she got the news, she flatly refused to marry him and wouldn't hear another word about it. Our parents, who had always favored Madison, forced me to take her place and marry Jack instead. After I married him, took me less than 6 months to cure Jack's paralysis. Once he recovered, with his health restored and his military career taking off, Madison, who had been secretly involved with a thug and had gotten pregnant, became resentful. She left behind a suicide note, accusing me of stealing her engagement, then jumped into a river and killed herself. After Madison died, Jack didn't act any differently than usual, but when I was 8 months pregnant, he cruelly pushed me into the river. It turned out Madison's suicide note had accused me of manipulating her and stealing Jack from her. As I struggled in the freezing water, Jack looked at me coldly and said, "This is all your fault. If you hadn't schemed to break Madison and me apart, she wouldn't have died. You brought this on yourself." I couldn't swim, and my baby and I died tragically in that icy river. When I opened my eyes again, I heard a voice that was all too familiar. "I want to marry Jack Johnson right now, but I have a condition. I want the box of Grandpa's miracle pills that my sister has." That familiar voice made me turn my head. I saw Madison Yee standing next to Jack, who was once again sitting in a wheelchair, looking determined, as if she wouldn't take no for an answer. "Sister, I know the pills Grandpa left can heal Jack's legs. Please, I'm begging you, give them to me. If he takes them, he'll be able to walk again." I stared blankly at Madison, alive and well. Then I looked at Jack, whose legs were still paralyzed. What was happening? Wasn't Madison already dead? How was I looking at a version of her that was several years younger? And Jack, hadn't I already cured him? Why was he still sitting in a wheelchair? Then I turned and saw our parents, younger and wearing unfriendly expressions, and recognized every familiar item in the room. In that moment I realized something terrifying. I had been reborn. I had returned to the moment before. I was forced to marry Jack in Madison's place. In the previous life, when Jack was injured and became paralyzed during a mission, Madison, his fiancée, immediately regretted the engagement. She absolutely refused to marry a disabled man. Our parents had always adored Madison for her wit and eloquence, so when she refused, they turned to me, the daughter they never cared for, to take her place. Jack, dumped by the woman he loved, became aggressive and hostile. He refused to take his medicine or cooperate with treatment, and was completely resigned to dying. So on the first day of our marriage, when I saw the miserable state he was in, I told him outright that I had a box of miracle pills left behind by my grandfather that could heal him. I told him that if he took them for 81 days, his legs would recover completely. Jack didn't fully believe me, but he had no choice. A paralyzed soldier who couldn't walk was bound to be discharged, and my late grandfather had indeed been a renowned healer. So with suspicion in his heart, Jack began taking the pills I gave him every day. Before long, the 81 days were over, and Jack's paralyzed legs could stand again. The dramatic transformation left him stunned and overjoyed. From that day on, he listened to everything I said. A few months later, Jack was able to stand fully on his own. With his health restored, he returned to the military and rose quickly through the ranks, becoming more and more successful. Seeing Jack healthy and thriving, Madison regretted her decision. She came to me, asking me to divorce him so she could marry him again. I refused. I was already pregnant. When she realized she couldn't talk me into it, she tried to win Jack back directly. She visited him repeatedly, using any excuse. Jack's attitude toward her seemed lukewarm, and I thought he hated her for abandoning him when he needed her most. I had no idea that he didn't truly hate Madison. The power of a first love can magnify a man's worst instincts, his ingratitude, disloyalty, and selfishness. Jack was torn between choosing Madison and staying with me, the woman who had given him back his legs. It was a painful struggle for him. Then a few days later, someone delivered a letter to Jack in Madison's name. The letter was a dramatic and emotional condemnation of me. Madison claimed that I had used Grandpa's miracle pills to blackmail her and force her away from Jack. She wrote that I had plotted to ruin her, setting her up with thugs, and deliberately getting her pregnant. She said I had wanted her dead. Right now Jack had no other way out. Death was his only option. After reading Madison's letter, he immediately left the house and rushed to the river, where she had supposedly taken her life. But by the time he arrived, all he found was Madison's pale, bloated corpse floating in the water. From that day on, Jack's attitude toward me began to shift. I could feel the change, but my conscience was clear. After all, it was Madison who had chosen to walk away from him. She had never truly loved him. She was two-timing him the whole time, secretly seeing a slick-talking thug on the side. Back when Jack was healthy, Madison had her eyes on his future promotions and wanted to have it both ways. But the moment he became disabled, she didn't hesitate to break off the engagement and let me take her place while she ran off with that lowlife. If Jack had cared enough to look into it back then, he would have seen right through her. Her so-called suicide was just an act. She just happened to be unlucky. The ground beneath her gave way, and she accidentally fell into the river and died. What I underestimated was how deeply Jack had cared for Madison. What I never expected was how far he would go. In his madness, when I was 8 months pregnant, Jack suddenly acted out of character and offered to take me for a walk. I didn't suspect a thing. He led me to the same river where Madison had died. There was no one around. Then without warning he shoved me into the water. As I struggled helplessly, he stood on the shore and watched, his voice filled with hatred. "This is your punishment, Madison. You knew the one I loved was her, and you still schemed to tear us apart. Just for wealth and status. You set her up to be humiliated by that thug. A venomous woman like you doesn't deserve to live." I tried to speak to explain, but he wouldn't listen. The river poured into my mouth and nose. I drowned in that icy winter night. Me and the child in my belly both lost forever. The agony of drowning, of dying with my baby, made me burn with hatred. I wanted nothing more than to rip Jack Johnson apart. This cruel, heartless, ungrateful monster. As I stirred slightly in the present, still in shock from the memories, Jack, still in his wheelchair, coldly cut in. "Isabella the First don't like you. Not even a little. Don't think you can use some miracle pills to force me to marry you. I'd rather stay paralyzed for life than ever give in to you. Give it up." As soon as those words left his mouth, Madison dropped to her knees in front of me. With a loud thud, "Isabella, I'm begging you. As your sister, I'm begging you, please give me Grandpa's pills. If they can help Jack walk again, I'll do anything for you. I'll serve you for the rest of my life." Looking at the two shameless people in front of me, both begging for the miracle pills, I was absolutely certain they had been reborn too. These two scumbags had returned to this life, just like I had, and they were convinced I still had the pills that could cure Jack. What they didn't know was that those so-called miracle pills never existed. In the previous life, the doctors had already declared that Jack's condition was incurable. He was expected to remain disabled for the rest of his life. But I was well versed in medicine, and I wanted to help him. Jack, however, believed he was beyond saving. After Madison dumped him, he completely lost hope and refused to cooperate with treatment. So to get him to accept help, I told him a well-meaning lie. I said Grandpa had left behind a box of miracle pills that could cure him. In reality, the pills Jack took for 81 days were ones I made myself. Just honey-coated herbal sleep aids. Jack had always believed that it was the pills that restored his legs. He had no idea that the pills had absolutely nothing to do with it. Every night after he took the sleeping pills and fell into a deep sleep, I would take out my silver needles and perform acupuncture on him, following the techniques Grandpa had passed down to me. For hours each night I worked on his blocked meridians, treating him silently while he slept. After each acupuncture session, I would give him massages, stimulating the pressure points one by one. The reason Jack could walk again wasn't because of any miracle cure. It was my exceptional acupuncture massage techniques. The pills were nothing more than a cover. Now both Madison and Jack were staring at me, waiting for my response. Madison especially grabbed my wrist tightly, her fingernails digging painfully into my flesh. Isabella, you're not gonna say no to your sister, right? We're family, our bond is in our blood. If you help me, I'll be grateful for the rest of my life. Seeing Madison, their precious oldest daughter, kneeling in front of me, begging for pills that didn't even exist, my biased parents immediately jumped to her defense. They couldn't stand to see her suffer. My mom glared at me and snapped, Isabella, you have Grandpa's pills. Why won't you give them to your sister to help Jack? What is wrong with you? My dad pointed a trembling finger at me, his face red with fury. You shameless brat. Hand over those pills to your sister right now. Don't you care if Jack lives or dies? I looked at my parents' cold, unfeeling faces and asked slowly and clearly, do you seriously think Grandpa left me any miracle pills? Don't you remember? Grandpa died in an accident, on his way to treat a patient. I never even got the chance to see Grandpa one last time. How could he possibly have left me any kind of miracle cure? And let's not forget, after his death, my parents tore through his house from top to bottom. Anything with even a hint of value, they took for themselves. When I left, all I had was a black cloth pouch. Inside, aside from a few of Grandpa's handwritten notes, there was nothing else. My direct question made my parents exchange a quick glance. Deep down, they both knew perfectly well there had never been any miracle medicine. But then they turned to Madison and Jack. Are you sure about this miracle pill? My dad asked hesitantly. No doubt about it. I'm certain there is one, Jack replied without hesitation. Madison had never actually seen the so-called miracle pills. I used to treat Jack, but she knew full well that in our past life, he had gone from paralyzed to fully recovered. That alone was proof enough for her. Maybe she's hiding them, Madison said. Isabella's always been sneaky and manipulative. Of course, she wouldn't tell you about something so important. Hearing both Madison and Jack speak with such certainty, my parents immediately turned on me again, demanding I hand over the life-saving pills. If you don't give them up, don't blame us for being ruthless, they threatened. After living 2 lifetimes, I was all too familiar with how cold and heartless my parents were. Toward me, my voice was like ice as I asked word by word, what are you planning to do to your own daughter? If you don't listen, we'll beat you to death, my mother snapped. And if that doesn't work, we'll marry you off to that old widower in town. In my last life, when I refused to marry Jack in Madison's place, they treated me the same way, beating me, cursing me, and threatening to send me off to marry that old man. To them, Madison was their precious jewel, while I, raised by Grandpa, was worth less than a dog in their eyes. Since they had no love for me, I no longer felt any sense of family loyalty toward them either. This time I would get justice. I would make sure Jack Johnson, that despicable man, and Madison that shameless woman, paid for everything they had done. I yanked my arm away from Madison's grip, her nails having dug deep into my skin. My gaze shifted to Jack, so determined to pretend he didn't want the pills, yet clearly staring at me like a starving man. I sneered. Didn't you say you'd rather die than take my pills, Captain Johnson? I thought you were a hero. So in honor of your great nobility, I won't be handing them over. I hope you'll stay true to your word and spend the rest of your life happily ever after with my sister. As soon as I finished speaking, I caught a flicker of panic on Jack's face. He realized I wouldn't give him the pills, and that meant he'd never walk again. He didn't want to stay crippled. In our past life, his recovery had brought him a soaring military career, 3 promotions in no time. Now that hope was slipping through his fingers. And it wasn't just Jack who was upset. Madison, that greedy, vain, heartless woman. My own sister was furious too. I knew full well that at this point in time, she was still hot and heavy with that street thug. Deep down, she didn't want to marry Jack. especially not a cripple. The only reason she insisted this time was because she'd been reborn too. She knew Jack would recover and rise through the ranks. That's the only future she wanted. Madison burst into tears, crying and screaming that I was evil and despicable, that I couldn't stand to see her happy. I watched her performance with complete indifference, not the slightest ripple of emotion on my face. When they saw I wasn't giving in, Jack finally couldn't stay silent, still in his wheelchair. He actually had the nerve to assume I was in love with him. Isabella, the real reason you won't give up the pills is because you still have feelings for me. Isn't it? He said arrogantly. Let me make it clear. I'd rather stay paralyzed for life than ever leave. Madison, I'd rather die than marry you. I gave him a cold laugh. You really think too highly of yourself. You're just a half-paralyzed cripple. What makes you think I want to marry someone like you? In my last life, I was always careful not to hurt Jack's pride. I tiptoed around him, never speaking harshly. But now, hearing me call him a cripple to his face, Jack was completely stunned. He stared at me, disbelief written all over him. I met his gaze with nothing but disgust. Panic spread across his face. He wanted to walk again so badly. Now that I refused to hand over the pills, he had to find another way. Jack turned to my parents and suggested, "This house isn't that big. Those pills are so important. She's definitely keeping them in her room somewhere." My parents and Madison instantly understood the hint. The three of them exchanged a glance and sprang into action. If I wouldn't give the pills willingly, they'd just take them by force. Jack couldn't help physically, so Madison and my parents took over. They stormed into my room and tore it apart. Pillows, drawers, cabinets, even pulling up floorboards, like they were digging for treasure. They spent 5 or 6 frantic hours searching every inch of the place. In the end, they found nothing, not a trace of the so-called miracle pills. The 4 of them stood there dumbfounded, completely at a loss. How could Jack Johnson possibly recover now? My biased parents, completely heartbroken for Madison, were furious and humiliated. They turned on me again, shouting, "Are you gonna hand over the pills or not? If you keep this up, don't blame us if we beat you to death." Jack joined in, threatening me too. "Isabella, if you give us the pills willingly, I promise no one will hurt you. But if you keep being stubborn, and your parents take action, I won't stop them." Getting beaten in this house was nothing new to me. In my past life, every time they hit me, I would quietly endure it. I internalized the pain, thinking it was my fault, that I must have done something wrong, for my parents not to love me. But after dying once, I now knew the truth. Their hatred for me had nothing to do with me. It was simply favoritism. In their eyes, there was only Madison. I didn't exist. My eyes moved slowly from my parents to Jack. This ungrateful, shameless scum of a man. I looked him dead in the eye and said word by word, "If they lay even a finger on me, the pills will be destroyed, and Jack Johnson will never walk again." Jack backed off. After tearing apart my room and finding nothing, he knew he had no leverage. He didn't dare push me too far. If I got angry and decided to never give up the pills, all his dreams of recovery would be gone. Left with no other option, Jack, Madison, and my biased parents left in frustration to go discuss their next move. What they didn't realize was that, no matter how long they planned, they would never find pills that didn't exist. I sat alone in my ransacked room, quietly planning my next steps. In my past life, they had forced me, slandered me, and hurt me mercilessly. This time I would never let it slide. I would make every last one of them pay. Jack wouldn't give up on the pills. I knew that, so I decided I'd give him something else entirely. A specially prepared box of medicine that would leave him impotent for life. Over the next week, whenever I had free time, I stayed in my room studying Grandpa's old notes. Meanwhile, Jack kept showing up at our house, meeting with Madison to figure out their next move. I knew they wouldn't give up. Jack was obsessed with walking again and regaining his success. Madison wanted to become a general's wife and live a life of luxury. They wouldn't stop coming after me. And sure enough, one night, while I was walking home alone from my night shift, 3 or 4 thugs suddenly appeared and blocked my path. They closed in around me with sleazy smiles, cutting off any escape. The one in front held a knife. Hand over the miracle pills. He said, we'll let you go if you cooperate. Otherwise, we'll have our fun with you before we kill you. As he spoke, he reached out to grab me. But the moment his hand touched mine, he let out a scream of pain. I had stabbed one of his pressure points with a silver acupuncture needle, hidden in my sleeve. He grimaced in agony. I took the chance to break through the circle and bolted down the alley. The wounded thug screamed after me. What are you waiting for? Don't let her get away. Footsteps pounded behind me. I ran for my life, shouting for help, desperate for anyone to hear me. Just as I burst out of the alley, a military jeep pulled up. It screeched to a stop as the driver saw me. I was saved. The men in the jeep, all military police, jumped out and quickly apprehended the thugs. The man who saved me was none other than General Chase Atwood, the youngest major general in the military district. He was a legend, an 18-year-old recruit who had racked up achievement after achievement and became a major general before he even turned 30. But just like Jack in the past, he had injured his leg during a mission and had to use a wheelchair. In my previous life, this promising hero had died young in a rainy night car accident on his way to a meeting. He wasn't even 30, and today was the day it had happened. I wanted to see if I could change his fate. With the second chance I'd been given, Chase had saved me. His guards quickly rounded up the thugs. Because of what had just happened, Chase didn't follow his original route to the meeting. Instead, he took me and the thugs straight to the police station. At the police station, the thugs were interrogated and quickly confessed. They didn't name the person behind the attack. Instead, they claimed that someone in their family was seriously ill, and that they had heard I had miracle pills that could cure any disease. They said they just wanted me to hand over the medicine to save a life. Seated in his wheelchair, Chase Atwood gave a cold, sarcastic chuckle. The thugs, visibly nervous under his gaze, still insisted, we're telling the truth. Isabella really does have miracle pills. Her grandfather was a famous healer. He left behind medicine that can cure anything. Absolutely anything. Chase turned to me. Is that true? I met his eyes calmly and didn't flinch. I don't have any miracle pills that can cure everything. But my grandfather passed on his medical skills to me. If it's your leg, I might be able to take a look. Chase raised an eyebrow, clearly skeptical. I can try, I said steadily. At least let me try. Sometimes a dying horse can still be saved. Maybe I can help with your leg. You're comparing me to a horse now, he said, mildly amused. Of course not. I just want to offer you a chance. Let me treat you. Honestly. Chase's gaze was so sharp it made my heart race. I was scared, but I still pushed forward and offered to treat his leg. Not because I was fully confident, but because I remembered how I had helped Jack walk again in my past life. Maybe I could do the same for Chase. He was a true military hero, completely different from someone despicable like Jack Johnson. I sincerely wanted to see him stand again. After dropping me off at home, Chase finally spoke. People say young calves aren't afraid of tigers. You're one bold calf. I'll give you a chance. 1 week from now I'll come pick you up. News of the thug's arrest reached Jack quickly. He hadn't expected things to fall apart so fast. When he heard I'd been rescued by Chase Atwood, he couldn't sit still. In our last life, by this point, I had already married Jack and began treating him with the so-called miracle pills. But this time he still hadn't received any treatment, and it was driving him insane. And now that he knew I had been saved by Chase, his anxiety only grew. Chase was better than him in every possible way. Jack was terrified that I might decide to help Chase recover instead. If I gave the miracle pills to Chase, his future would be over. Desperate to walk again, desperate to reclaim his promising career, Jack came to me himself. Isabella, he said, if you give me the pills to fix my legs, I'll marry you. I couldn't help but laugh. Why would I want that? Look at yourself. Half a man, half a ghost. And you still think you're some kind of prize. Why would I marry someone like you when I could have a perfectly healthy man? You're in love with me, aren't you? he said smugly. I spat on the ground. Don't say things that'll get you struck by lightning. You're Madison's fiancé. You think I'm in love with you. Don't flatter yourself. Even if I were dying, I'd never marry someone like you. Then what will it take for you to give me the medicine? He asked. I smiled. That depends on how sincere you are. I want money, at least 10,000. Fine, I'll find the money, Jack said, grinding his teeth. 10,000 was no small sum at that time. But he started scraping it together anyway. When word got out that I'd asked for 10,000 in exchange for the pills, Madison and my ever-biased parents were furious. They scolded me non-stop, calling me heartless, cruel, and ungrateful. I ignored them completely and focused on Grandpa's notes, working on making the pills. I prepared 2 sets. One was completely harmless, just ordinary herbal pills with no effect at all. The other was something else entirely, a pill that would destroy a man's ability to function, rendering him permanently impotent. If Jack and Madison managed to stop themselves in time, I was willing to let them go. But if not, they'd get exactly what they deserved. When the pills were finally ready, Jack, after an exhausting effort, gathered the full 10,000 and came back. We exchanged on clear terms cash for the box. I took the money and handed him the box containing the pills. Jack, gripping the box tightly, went off to have it verified, looking as if he had just paid for a golden ticket. Back in my room, I quietly stitched the $10,000 into the lining of my clothes. During that time, Madison knocked on my door several times, saying she had something to talk to me about. I ignored her every time. After securing the money, I placed a box into my black cloth satchel and walked out of the room. Outside, Madison, my parents, and Jack were all waiting, their eyes fixed on me. Jack must have verified the pills by now. After all, he had taken 81 of them in our past life, and would recognize the taste instantly. As soon as I stepped out, Madison asked, "Where are you going?" I swept my gaze over each of their faces and said calmly, "I'm going to the military compound to treat General Atwood." As I spoke, I intentionally shifted my satchel so the box inside peeked out. Madison and Jack both caught sight of it. Jack's expression darkened. Madison's face twisted with tension. "Sister," she said, "before you go, your big sister and our parents have prepared a little something for you." I glanced from Madison and Jack to my ever-biased parents. Oh, I didn't know. My sister and our parents had a gift for me. My parents wouldn't meet my gaze. They looked down and mumbled, "Actually, it wasn't from us. Madison and Jack are getting married soon. They wanted to thank you for everything. So they prepared a special gift." To thank me for what? For trying to kill me? Well, I said, "Thank you in advance. The gift is custom made." Madison added, "You'll need to come with us to get it." Sensing I might not follow willingly, she smiled sweetly. "I promise you'll love it." So I followed them, Madison, Jack, and my parents, out the door. But instead of taking the main road, they led me down a back path, winding closer and closer to the same river where, in our past lives, both Madison and I had drowned. I stopped walking. "Why are we going along the river?" I asked. "Why not take the road?" Madison stammered. "It's a shortcut." Soon we reached the riverbank. There wasn't a soul around. Suddenly Jack shouted, "Do it." At his command, my parents lunged forward and grabbed the satchel off my shoulder. Madison ran up to help. I was no match for the 4 of them. In no time they had wrestled the bag away. My parents opened it like it was a treasure chest, pulled out the box inside, and handed it to Jack, who was still in his wheelchair. "Jack, here, we got it." Jack opened the box, took out one of the pills and sniffed it. Familiarity flashed in his eyes. He sneered. "I knew it. Isabella, you tried to trick me with a fake." He looked up, his expression full of venom. "You've been reborn, haven't you? Just like me and Madison. You evil, shameless woman. How dare you use medicine to manipulate me? You must really want to die." I stared at Jack's cold eyes and replied, clearly and slowly, "Jack Johnson, if you don't want to die a miserable death, you better stop now. You're threatening me." He laughed. "You think I'm scared of you? Just because you've latched on to Chase Atwood. You really think tricking me with fake pills and hiding behind him will save you?" If you had given me the real medicine from the start, maybe I would have let you live. But now it's too late. Today you die." As soon as the words left his mouth, Madison suddenly charged at me. I had no time to dodge. She slammed into me hard, knocking me straight into the river. The water splashed violently. I plunged in like dead weight, completely submerged. As I struggled, I heard Jack's voice from the shore. "Isabella can't swim. She's as good as dead now. We can finally rest easy." Still worried, Madison peered down into the river. Seeing no sign of me surfacing, she finally exhaled in relief. "The current's so strong and she can't swim. She must have been swept away." My father looked uneasy. "What if someone finds out?" "Find out what?" Madison said casually. "When we get home we'll just say she went missing. If they find her body, we'll claim she slipped and fell in. And if the fish eat her, well, it'll just be another missing person case. No matter what." Jack added, "She won't be a problem anymore." "We need to leave now," someone said urgently. At once, my mother and father rushed forward and pushed Jack, wheelchair, quickly wheeling him away. The four of them hurried back home. Once they were inside and the door was shut, Madison couldn't wait another second. She poured a glass of water and took out the so-called miracle pills they'd stolen from me, handing them to Jack. "Jack, take them now," she said. "As long as you start taking these pills, your body will recover. Just like in our last life. You'll rise quickly 3 ranks in no time. And once you succeed, Mom and Dad will live comfortably too." Jack took the pill, the corners of his mouth lifting in a satisfied smile. He had already experienced its miraculous effects. In the last life, it would only take 81 days and he'd be walking again. After that his meteoric rise would begin. Now that they had the medicine in hand, both Jack and Madison completely relaxed. Confident everything was under control, they split up to take care of business. That very day, Jack and Madison went to the Civil Affairs Bureau and got their marriage certificate. Meanwhile, my parents filed a missing person report at the police station, claiming I had disappeared and couldn't be found. After the report was filed, the family began planning Jack and Madison's wedding. Madison had already envisioned this wedding in detail. She wanted to wear a white gown and hold a grand, extravagant ceremony. The problem was they had no money. According to their original plan, once they killed me, they'd have the $10,000 I had extorted from Jack. That would be more than enough for a lavish wedding, with plenty left over. Madison had even planned out how to use the remaining money to buy furniture, a bicycle and a watch. But to their disappointment, no matter how hard they searched my room, they couldn't find a single penny. Where would she have hidden the money? They asked each other, slowly beginning to realize that I must have kept the cash on me. Isabella was too cunning, Madison hissed. She must have sewn the money into her clothes, or kept it close to her body. If we'd known sooner, Jack said with regret, we would have taken the money first for pushing her into the river. But it was too late. Now their only remaining hope was that my body would eventually be found, and someone would contact them to come claim it. That way they could search me and recover the money. So they waited and waited, but no one came. Nobody was found. Why? Madison asked nervously. Could she still be alive? No way, Jack said. Isabella couldn't swim. I killed her the same way in the last life. So the only explanation was that my body had been eaten by fish. That was the conclusion they settled on. Eventually, when no news came and no body surfaced, they stopped expecting to recover it. Their focus shifted to moving forward. But without the money there was no wedding. The $10,000 Jack had given me had been borrowed with great difficulty from all kinds of people. Now it was gone and they were buried in debt. A grand ceremony was out of the question. So Madison, with nothing but resentment in her heart, moved into Jack's house without any formal wedding. She was unhappy, but kept reminding herself that Jack would rise through the ranks again someday. She forced herself to stay calm, to wait. Once Jack recovered, everything would be okay. Time passed quickly. Nearly 3 months flew by. The box of so-called miracle pills was almost empty. Jack had taken nearly all of them, and yet he still couldn't stand He remembered that in his previous life, he had started feeling results after just over a month. Why was it so different this time? There was one pill left. Maybe that last one was the key. He recalled that it was right after taking the final pill that he had regained full mobility. Clinging to hope, Jack swallowed the final pill. Tomorrow, he told himself, everything will change. Full of anticipation and excitement, he fell into a deep sleep, dreaming of glory. The next morning, a blood-curdling scream shook the military housing compound where Jack and Madison now lived. It was so piercing, so horrifying, that all the neighbors rushed to their door. When they pushed it open, they were met with a nightmarish sight. Jack was lying on the floor, his eyes wide and unfocused, his mouth twisted to the side, drool pouring uncontrollably from his lips. A nauseating stench filled the room. Madison was beside herself, crying and screaming in panic. Didn't he say he'd be fully recovered after 81 days? What a liar. That so-called miracle medicine is worthless. Madison snapped in disgust. He was perfectly fine before taking it. At least we could still have a normal married life. But now the more he takes it, the worse he gets. Premature ejaculation, total incontinence. He's disgusting, completely repulsive. What are we supposed to do now? What are we going to do? She stared at Jack with revulsion, refusing to even go near him as he lay on the floor. His eyes askew, his mouth twisted, moaning in agony, while losing control of his bowels and bladder. The neighbors, unable to bear the scene, helped rush Jack to the hospital. Doctors immediately performed a full set of tests, which took nearly 4 or 5 hours. When Madison finally received the report, her scream echoed through the hallway. Complete loss of sexual function, muscular atrophy in both legs, complications with bowel and bladder control. She kept screaming, why is this happening? The hospital made it clear. Jack's condition was irreversible. There was no hope of recovery. Madison was losing her mind. She couldn't accept the diagnosis. In her last life, none of this had happened. Jack had recovered fully. He had been no different from a healthy man. Why was everything so different this time? She didn't believe the doctors. She was convinced they were wrong. Desperate, she decided to take Jack to the capital, to find the best specialists and get another opinion. But traveling to the capital was no small task. It required money, time, and effort. And Jack had become completely dependent on others to survive. Madison might have been able to accept feeding him and helping him drink water. But cleaning up after his constant accidents, that was too much. The moment he ate anything, he lost control. Madison was utterly disgusted. She had no intention of cleaning up after him, day and night. So she called in my parents to help bring Jack to the capital. But neither of them was willing to take care of his mess, either to keep him from soiling himself and the car. Along the way, the three of them decided together, no more food or drink for Jack. After starving him for 3 days, Jack, pale and thin as a skeleton, was finally taken to a hospital in the capital. There, after another full round of tests, the doctors gave them the same exact results. Madison was in despair. She grabbed Jack by the shoulders and shook him wildly. Why is this happening? Tell me. Jack didn't know either. He wanted to scream the same thing. It had been the same medicine, taken the same way as in the last life. Why had it worked then and completely failed now? Shaken, starving, and dizzy, Jack whimpered weakly. Madison, I'm starving. Can you give me something to eat? Madison turned away in disgust, ignoring him. My parents did the same. A nurse, moved by pity, brought him a glass of water and 2 pieces of steamed bread. Jack devoured them like a starving animal. Meanwhile, Madison and my parents stepped outside, into the hallway, to figure out what to do next. What now? Madison asked, voice trembling. Mom, Dad, what am I supposed to do? Neither of them had an answer. They thought that helping their older daughter get rid of the younger one would lead to an easy life. But things had turned out completely different from what Madison had promised. Not only had Jack not recovered, his condition had worsened significantly. My mom furrowed her brow. Madison, I told you your dad and I told you. After your grandfather died, we searched the house top to bottom. There was no miracle medicine, nothing. Why didn't you believe us? You brought this on yourself. I didn't believe it either, Madison said bitterly. But in the last life, Jack recovered after marrying Isabella. I saw it with my own eyes. Jack told me himself that Isabella gave him the pills your dad left behind. I saw it after he got better. He kept getting promoted. He and Isabella moved into a private villa with maids and guards. They drove everywhere. I swear I'm not lying. Madison was desperate. She had seen all of it with her own eyes in the past. Well, we didn't live your past life, my mom said coldly. But right now Jack is like this. So what are you going to do about it? If it really comes to that, Madison said, her voice hollow, then maybe I'll just divorce him. Are you crazy? Military marriages aren't that easy to dissolve. My mother snapped. Especially now that Jack is like this. If you dare file for divorce, you'll be punished. You could even end up in jail. Then what do you expect me to do? Madison's voice cracked with frustration. I can't possibly waste my entire life on this half-paralyzed mess. My parents fell silent. Just then several nurses rushed down the hallway, speaking in hurried excitement. General Atwood is here for his checkup. Oh my God. I haven't seen him in a month and he's walking. No kidding, it's a miracle. The last test clearly showed he'd never stand again. How is he walking now? Rumor is there's an incredible healer by his side. A miracle doctor who brought his legs back to life. Seriously, is it a man or a woman? Maybe some old white-haired master. Nope, I heard it's a young woman. Really young. Her name's Isabella Yi. The name Isabella Yi made Madison and my parents freeze in place. They exchanged stunned glances. It can't be, Madison murmured. It must be someone with the same name. It can't be her. But the next second, a group of people appeared at the end of the corridor. And when they saw who was walking at the front, the three of them instinctively rubbed their eyes in disbelief. There, in a floral dress and polished leather shoes, smiling radiantly, was me, alive, in perfect health. They stared at me like they were seeing a ghost. No way, Madison muttered. No way, I was the one who pushed her into the river. She didn't even finish the sentence before my mother clapped a hand over her mouth. Only then did she realize what she had just said. Out loud, the three of them stood frozen as I approached, walking beside General Chase Atwood, surrounded by over a dozen of his guards, drawing the attention of everyone in the hospital. My parents trembled when they saw me. I met their shocked expressions with a cold, mocking smile. I stopped in front of them. Were you calling me? You're okay. My mother stammered, her voice shaking. I knew how terrified they were seeing me alive. Sorry to disappoint you, I said coolly. But I'm alive and well. You must have assumed I couldn't swim, which is why you pushed me into that river, right? Shame for you. I came back and made learning to swim the first thing on my list. It was all a misunderstanding. My mother tried to explain. Flustered, I narrowed my eyes, cutting her off. So what brings you and your beloved daughter here today? Don't tell me. You're trying to get treatment for Jack Johnson. That's right, she blurted, seizing on the excuse. Jack's condition worsened, and Madison thought bringing him to the capital might help. Right then we heard the squeak of wheelchair wheels. Jack emerged from his hospital room, struggling to push himself down the hall. The moment his eyes landed on me, standing tall next to Chase, whose legs were clearly fine, his eyes widened in disbelief. No way, this can't be happening. In his last life, General Chase Atwood had died in a car accident. Even before that, his legs had always been paralyzed. But now he was not only alive, he could walk. How was this possible? Jack's mind couldn't grasp it. This wasn't how things were supposed to go. The events of this life were deviating wildly from the last. He needed an explanation. And he knew the only person who had the answer was me. It had to be me. I must have switched the pills. I must have given the real miracle medicine, the one meant for him, to General Atwood instead. That had to be why Chase could walk again. But if that were true, was there still hope for him? The thought terrified him. What if this time he really never walked again? Then what was the point of being reborn at all? The fear shook him to the core. His body trembled, and even his voice faltered as he looked straight at me and choked out, You switched the pills, didn't you? I smirked, meeting his panic with amusement. What do you think it was you? Jack started coughing violently, his rage boiling over. He had been so sure he was in control, that he'd been the one with the advantage. He had never once considered that the hunter might become the hunted. I raised an eyebrow and watched his face drain of color. Regretting it now, aren't you? Jack didn't answer. But I didn't need him to. I already knew the truth. He regretted everything. I looked at Jack's pale, ashen face with a mocking smile and said slowly, "You're regretting something, aren't you? If you had known I'd switched the pills, you wouldn't have acted so rashly. You would have waited, wouldn't you? Been more patient. Taken the pills. Stood up first and then tried to kill me." Jack said nothing, but the look on his face betrayed everything he was thinking. My smirk widened. "But I warned you, didn't I? When you went completely insane and tried to kill me. I told you to stop, to turn back before it was too late. You didn't listen. And now you regret it. Isn't that a bit late?" "When did you switch the pills?" he asked, voice tight with desperation. He needed an answer. I smiled lightly. "I never switched anything, never." "You're lying, I don't believe you. If you didn't switch them, why can't I walk? You gave my medicine to him, didn't you?" He pointed at Chase Atwood. "That's why he can walk. You stole what was mine and gave it to him." I cut him off before he could say more. "Do you really think it still matters what you say now? Jack, do you want to know why you ended up like this? It's not because I gave your miracle pills to someone else. It's because those pills never existed." "I don't believe you," Jack shouted. "You're lying. If there were no miracle pills, then why could I walk in the last life? Why can he walk now?" "Because your recovery had nothing to do with the pills," I said, clearly enunciating every word. "You're missing the most important detail." "What did I miss?" he asked. "You forgot me," I said softly, almost laughing. "Have you ever once considered that the reason either of you could walk wasn't the medicine, but me?" "That's impossible," Jack muttered. "Is it?" Chase Atwood, who had been silently watching, finally spoke up. "I didn't recover because I took some miracle cure. I can walk now because she treated me with acupuncture. Every single day." "Acupuncture?" Jack's eyes flickered and then something clicked. He remembered it. Back in our last life after we got married, there had been a set of silver acupuncture needles in the nightstand drawer. He had asked me once what they were for, and I had told him they were for treating illness. He hadn't paid it any mind. He never imagined I actually knew. Medicine never connected me with the person healing him. To him I had just been a housemaid, a caregiver, someone insignificant, someone beneath notice. So was it really acupuncture that cured his legs in the last life? He didn't want to believe it. "Then why?" he asked bitterly. "Why did you lie and tell me there was a miracle pill?" "You really don't know," I replied coldly. "You were willing to die for Madison. You refused every attempt at treatment. I had no choice but to lie to you, just to make you cooperate. I never imagined," I went on, "that you could be so heartless. After everything I did for you, after I saved you, cared for you, you repaid me with betrayal and murder. You're nothing but a soulless monster, a coward." Jack's face turned a deeper shade of gray with every word. He spat. "Isn't it because you were in love with me? You forced Madison to leave so you could take her place. You couldn't stand seeing us together." I laughed coldly. "You think I wanted you? Do you know why I married you? Madison didn't want to. You were a cripple, and she didn't want to waste her life on a man who couldn't walk. She already had another man outside, so they forced me to take her place." "That's not true," Jack roared. "Madison isn't like that. Don't you dare slander her." Even now he was defending her. "Love really is blind. Whether he believed me or not didn't matter. He would suffer the consequences, not me." "Believe whatever you want," I said calmly. "It won't change the fact that you're a heartless, ungrateful monster. Even a tiger won't eat its own cubs, but you shoved me into a river while I was pregnant. You're worse than a beast." Jack's face went deathly pale. He had no way to fight back, no place to hide. He thought this was the lowest point of his suffering, but he was wrong. This was only the beginning. I gave a cold laugh and stared straight at him. "Jack Johnson," I whispered, "you're about to learn what true regret feels like." I looked at Jack's ashen face with a sneer. I knew you were heartless and soulless, a complete bastard, but I still considered giving you a chance. I thought, maybe heaven has compassion for all living things. Maybe I should let you live. But you refused to take the road to heaven, and insisted on barging into hell. If you had stopped Madison from pushing me into the river, if you'd backed off then, I wouldn't have saved you, but I also wouldn't have let you end up like this. You tampered with the medicine. That's right, I said. It wasn't some kind of miracle cure. It was poison. It's designed to make your life worse than death. Jack gasped, struggling to breathe. Your evil's so vicious. Compared to you. I raised an eyebrow. I'm far less cruel. Give it up, Jack. Your condition can't be cured. The rest of your life will be spent in that wheelchair, soiling yourself. Enjoy it, and I really hope the woman you love, Madison, will stay devoted and faithful to you until the end. We'll see about that, I added coldly. As I turned and walked away, a loud thud rang out behind me, followed by a nauseating stench. I didn't need to turn around to know. Jack had lost control of his bowels again. The doctors confirmed there was no hope for his recovery. Madison, along with her parents, had no choice but to bring Jack home. Once she realized he would never walk again, Madison was filled with overwhelming regret. But divorce wasn't an option. Military marriages didn't dissolve so easily, especially now that Jack was disabled. And taking care of him, someone who couldn't control his own body, was out of the question for her. Since Jack was no longer fit to stay on base, the Army arranged for his discharge. He received a lump sum and a monthly disability pension, and they were kicked out of military housing. From the very first day they left the compound, Jack's life turned into a living hell. Madison completely abandoned him, unable to care for himself. Jack was left to crawl around the house. Meanwhile, she went out every day to find other men to enjoy herself with. Jack barely had food. One meal might come, the next wouldn't. He lived like a stray, filthy and helpless. Whenever Madison came home and found the place reeking from his mess, she flew into a rage and beat him. Slaps, kicks, even sticks. As she beat him, she screamed, "You damn jinx. Good days never come my way. All the bad luck in the world just had to find me." Jack cried out in pain, pleading, "Madison, please. You can't treat me like this. We're in this together. I love you, you're the only one I care about. I'm just not able to walk right now. But I'll find a way. I'll stand again, I promise." He thought saying that might soften her heart. It only made things worse. "You still dreaming about walking? Keep dreaming," she shouted. "The doctors already said you're done for life. And you're a curse. You ruined my last life. And now you're dragging me down in this one too. You've destroyed me twice. Do you even understand that?" Madison had finally dropped the mask. She glared at him, her face twisted with hatred. "Back then, I only hooked up with you because you recovered. I figured with your rank and connections, I could climb up too. I didn't know you'd bring me nothing but death. You were using me all along." Jack trembled. "You thought I loved you," she laughed. "Does love put food on the table? Have you even looked at yourself in the mirror lately? You're disgusting. I must have done something awful in a past life to be cursed with you, and too. Back then I wasn't even supposed to die. But you couldn't make a damn decision. You dragged your feet, and I had to fake a suicide to force you to break things off with her. I left a note and went to the river, planning to pretend to jump in. But the bank collapsed beneath me, and I actually fell in. And you knew the truth." Jack's voice cracked with rage. Madison gave him a crooked smile. "Of course I did. What, you thought I was some innocent little princess? Snow White, please. Just thinking about it pisses me off. I thought I was destined for comfort and glory. But all I got was you. You ungrateful bastard. You deserve this. You can't walk. Because heaven finally gave you what you deserved." Jack never imagined that the woman he loved so deeply would turn out to be someone like that. Overwhelmed with rage and disbelief, he fainted on the spot. After that day, Madison stopped pretending altogether. Since she and Jack had already torn off all pretenses, and he was now a cripple, she no longer saw the need to hold back. He couldn't stop her anyway. For her own convenience, she began bringing her lovers home to mess around. Right there in front of him, lying on the floor. Helpless. Jack could hear Madison and her men in the bedroom. The sounds pierced his soul, each moment more unbearable than the last. He finally understood why fate had sent him back. Not for redemption but as punishment. Because he had been too cruel, too shameless. Because he had done things that violated heaven's principles. He realized this second chance wasn't a gift. It was retribution. He couldn't take it anymore. After a lot of thought, Jack finally told Madison, "I don't want to go on like this. I'll let you go, we can get divorced." "You really mean it?" Madison was suspicious. "Of course, just invite your parents over, so we can talk it through properly." Madison thought she was finally free of Jack. What she didn't know was that Jack had laid a trap. For her and for her parents. He asked her to prepare a nice meal, and while she was busy, he secretly laced the wine with sleeping drugs. Once Madison and her parents drank the spiked alcohol, they passed out. Jack locked the doors and set the house on fire. Flames roared into the night, and screams echoed under the moonlight. News of Jack, Madison and her parents' deaths reached me just as I returned from the courthouse with Caleb, after registering our marriage. When I heard about it, I didn't feel any sorrow. From the moment Madison and her parents pushed me into the river, they ceased to be my family. They were strangers. And the death of strangers has nothing to do with me. This second life, I was meant to live it well. From this point forward, all the toxic people and ugliness were behind me. Even if the road ahead wouldn't be easy, at least it would be free of those who wished me harm. And with that alone, I was sure I could live a very, very happy life. Bookmark back.